Hi guys, welcome back. On the previous video I did on these LED lights, I wanted to show you how I was putting all the wiring together, and since then I've been having a play around, and as you can see here, imagine this is an LED strip. You can see there's two rails. There's a positive rail at the top, negative rail at the bottom, and these LEDs here in the middle, they all connect up to the top of the positive rail, and then again they all connect down to the bottom of the negative rail, and all these LEDs are running off these rails. It's how these things work, these LED strips. And what happens is when you've got, say, a pack of 5 of these strips, is how they kind of come from China. The idea is you power the first strip and then you send the power down each of the strips using the little connectors that each of the strips come with. And what you find is after you've connected up all the strips together and you try to run a 12-volt power supply down all the strips, you find as the power goes into the first strip, the first strip starts taking the majority of the power, and what you'd find is it goes into the first strip, and your LEDs, these LEDs here, are getting the first majority of the wattage that's going into this circuit. And if it was correctly balanced and wired, this circuit, what I'd have expected would be, say, a 20% balance of the wattage, the power, going through each of the strips. But what you find is it isn't 20% each strip. It's not balanced out nice, because the wiring has been trying to stretch it down each strip. What you find is that the first strip will take, say, 75% of the power, the second strip about 15%, third about 10, fourth about 7, and yeah, even down to 3%, where it's like that strip at the end is only getting 6 watts. So because of these low wattages and these low kind of efficiencies on the second, third, fourth and fifth strip, it's not very good, because as we do the growing of the Dioneo over the next 6 months, you'll just find that for the wattage being put in and the reward coming out, it's just not very good, being honest. So the second approach I decided to take was to try to run these strips in parallel, and that was a case of taking the red, the positive, off each of the strips and connecting them up and running them off to the power supply unit, and then doing the same with the negative wires, taking the negative of each strip and running it off to the power supply unit. But you can see, like, if I tried to add additional strips on, like how they originally came wired, you have the same problem as you did at the beginning. Instead of it balancing out at 20% a strip, it's just gone to 75%, 20%, and so on. It's going to be reduced down the line again. So what I messed around with and decided on, and I've tested it, so it's the best way of doing it, is to set out all the strips, individually wire each one up, even though it looks kind of like BT's phone, wiring connections. Don't worry about it, because what happens is, even though you are kind of chewing the wires and using a lot of wires to run this circuit, you find that 9 watts will go to each strip, and you won't have the 75% and the 20% distribution issue. You'll get a perfect distribution of wattage to each of the strips. So you can see how all the negatives are going to the negative there on this PSU, and you can see how all the positives on this circuit of strips are going to the positive on the PSU. Now, the PSUs, the old ones, the AT ones, are about 240 watts. So we're getting 9 watts per strip, and let's say we're running 25 strips on one power supply here, right? And that won't push the power supply too much, but we'll get the best of the power supply. That'll come in about 225 watts. Now if you had a basic 10 watt on for the actual PSU fan built into the PSU, you're looking at 235 watts really, and that 235 watts, the PSU will run 240, 250 quite happy, but the 25 watt you'll get a good 25 strips out of one power supply, which is a win. At full wattage of a good 9 watts. These things are rated at 15 watts when you buy them, but you're not going to get that, and the temperature at 9 watts says that. Yeah, it kind of sucks on the wiring there. There's a hell of a lot of wiring, and it does get in the way and stuff. But on a bright note, the PSU is kind of free there, and also you're getting full wattage from each of the strips, as well as getting a good 25 strips, and you've got 25 strips, and each of the strips has 34 LEDs in, so it can run it's running 850 LED lights, grow lights, all for 235 watts, so that's pretty good. So yeah, I hope this has clarified more about how this grow setup is now working. And I do like these grow LEDs. I would, say they're pretty good. But I would say if you're happy and you don't like wiring, then perhaps use my previous video as a guide to wiring them up and, sacrificing a bit of efficiency. But if you do want to get the best out of these LED strips and the wattages you're putting in, I would recommend, as I showed here, just wiring them up individually, and that way you'll guarantee a 9 watt per strip. So thank you for listening and watching, and I hope this has been helpful if you're working on it yourself. Keep an eye out for other videos. Thanks again. Catch us up. See you soon.